Hello, dear ones. You are watching the Berean Girl channel. Welcome and thank you for joining me, Heather Zubiati, on my mission to see if what they say is so. I'm continuing on my testimony. And first, I would just like to give a little bit of a disclaimer. The views expressed on my channel are not necessarily those of those, you know the drill, of YouTube or anyone else. They're mine. I don't know why I had to say that, but I just felt like I had to. So we're going to continue where we left off, and where I left off was I was now going out on my own, which is very exciting for most young people. I know it was for me. All right, so out on my own. Now that I was out on my own, I tried to go to church myself. Really, I did. I kept attending the large Foursquare church our family attended before they moved. The church was and still is, as far as I know, pastored by the brother of a friend of mine. So it was fine for a while, but I would have done much better if I just kept to the service and not gone to the the young adults. I found them to be so cliquish and phony as usual. And since the demands of retail, you have to work, you have to work weekends. So going to church was a huge hassle. And so I stopped going altogether. I know this happens a lot, as I understand it. Robert Zubiati. I had heard his amazing name paged several times over the paging system during the first 3 months I was at my job. But one fine day, I finally laid eyes on him. He was walking down the main aisle of the store, returning from lunch with some friends. And wow, what a sight to behold. I'm sorry, I will not share that with you entirely. That's mine. So anyway, I asked one of the guys near me, who was that? And he said, "Oh, that's Robert Zubiati, but he's a real player." That didn't bother me. After going out with and dumping several mediocre guys and one potential woman beater, I was okay with dating someone that wasn't too clingy or the jealous type. As it turned out, Robert was nowhere near a player. On our first date, it was great. He arrived at the door. The first thing I saw was like 24 pink roses, which are my favorite. Usually I would be met with one red rose. It was just so cliche to me. I didn't find it special. Anyway, 24 of my favorite flower, that got my attention. I learned later that he actually had to borrow money to go out on our date, and those flowers were on sale. So thanks, Lord. I appreciate it. Anyway, at dinner, while we talked, we discovered that we had so much in common. Our childhoods were very similar. And, minus the religious aspects. He was born in the Catholic Church, but he was not a practicing Catholic. And then me, as a born-again Christian, or so I thought I was, I already knew that was going to be a problem, but I decided that I would cross that religious bridge later. And I have to tell you, if you're single, please do not participate in what is known as evangelistic dating. If the man or woman that you're interested in is not of your faith, do not get involved with them until they are, or fortunately try and find somebody else, because I speak from experience. You risk a great deal of heartache that could have been avoided if you just follow that biblical counsel. I'm just saying. Next up, first comes love. Sorry to say, I can't tell you for sure exactly when I fell in love with Robert. I mean, when I really began to love him for who he was. But I was for darn sure attracted to him physically. All I know is that at some point I did fall in love with him. He went home the day he saw me. He actually saw me walk through the main roll-up door at the store, which is funny. So when he saw me, he knew I was the one. So romantic, right? He even went home and told his sister that he saw the woman he was going to marry. I mean, come on. Even though Robert wasn't a born-again Christian, when we met and started dating, fortunately for me, he was very willing to convert, which is, not always the case. And the truly sad thing is that I led him to Christ while lying in our bed of sin. I know the hypocrisy of it all. Even to this day, the thought of it makes me cringe, but it's the honest truth. A word of warning to those of you that think that you might get away with the sin of presumption. I'm going to tell you that's not going to be the case. What is the sin of presumption, you ask? I'm glad you asked. Well, the sin of presumption goes like this. I know it's wrong to have sex before marriage, but God is so forgiving. I know He'll forgive me of this sin even when I ask Him to. Besides, I know we'll get married anyway. It's amazing how we can justify our sin, isn't it? Even though God is merciful and forgiving toward the repentant sinner, the honest sinner, He's not so easily forgiving of the presumptuous one for obvious reasons. You are presuming upon His mercy, and you're a hypocrite the whole time. So you are going to have to suffer some consequences. I know King David did. I know I did. So don't push it. That was my public service announcement. Now, this is not because God just can't wait to punish you. No, it's when you suffer for sin like that, it does a work. It makes you run back to Him, just like David did. Well, not always. Like King Saul, he was not repentant, but King David was when his sin was brought before him. So hopefully you would avoid it altogether. Tragedy strikes. One night, it's more than this. I wrote this article back in 2014. So I'm saying here 23 years ago. So now it'd be 28 years ago. Oh. All right, so it's been a long time. 28 years ago, Robert and I got home late from work one night and we started to get something to eat. Then we heard the phone ring. It was late at night, so I knew whoever was calling, it would be important, but I had no idea just how important it would be. So when I picked up the phone, I heard, "Tim has stopped breathing. We're taking him to the hospital." It's my mother. Panic set in. Tim was the second son, third in the line of the Rivas children. I say was because he is now in heaven. One minute I'm at home with my man, having a snack after a long day, and then whammo. The next thing I knew, I spent an agonizingly long ride to the hospital. I was praying. No, I was more like commanding and demanding that he be all right. Once we got there, I no more than sat down. Then my baby brother came through the curtain and he choked. "He's gone." And I screamed, "No!" and bolted past him through the door. There he was, my brother, lying blue and lifeless on that gurney, with my mother standing next to him with her hands wringing. And she was wringing her hands, and she was just sobbing. She looked like she was lost, like a lost child. And I decided I never wanted to see that ever again. It's just not right. It's not what's supposed to happen. Everyone knows that parents are supposed to go before their children. If only that were the case. I won't go into every detail of what happened. It's so 28 years ago, and it's still difficult. I'm sorry. If you've lost someone you understand. But I will share this. After that horrific event, I started to suffer from torturous dreams that left me sobbing in the middle of the night. Nagging questions of Tim's spiritual state before he died were haunting me. My sister Lori, Tim's twin, was given a blessed mercy, a wonderful dream. But allow me to interject something real quickly. We Reva's children, there's 6 of us. We're kind of paired off. My older brother, who's 3.5 years older than I, we look the same. We were tall, dark hair, dark eyes, light skin. My middle brother and sister, Tim and Lori, medium build, medium hair color, hazel eyes. My younger brother and sister, they're tall, dark. So it's kind of funny. We look like twins. So anyway, when I say Lori or Tim's twin, Lori's twin, that's what I mean. They're not actual twins. So anyway, in this dream, she couldn't say for sure where they were. She just assumed it was in heaven. There was no sign, welcome to heaven. She didn't go into details. She didn't have any special revelations from the Lord. She said that they just hung out and everything was all right. And I hung on to that dream, and I still do. After that, I did not have any more nightmares. And I believe the Lord gave that to her as a mercy to us. She didn't ask for it. She didn't go to a medium looking for answers. It was completely unsolicited. And she hasn't written a best-selling book about her dream. So all this makes me believe that it was just God's way of giving us peace. Moving on. Second comes marriage. After nearly 2 years of living as engaged fornicators, Robert really started to push hard to make an honest woman of me. The nerve of that guy. Just kidding, of course. So I finally relented, and we got married on August 14th, 1993. I know that sounds so romantic, doesn't it? It's true. Nevertheless, I, a Christian woman, was actually dragging her feet to the altar of matrimony. Marriage, a major life event most females dream of since birth, was just something I was not in a hurry to experience. Some may say it was because of my age. We were both 22 at the time. I didn't think we were too young, but looking at our pictures, oh my goodness, we looked like children. So I can see why some people objected. If you desire to see what I mean, it's on my website. I'll leave a link. You can take a look. Honestly, I didn't think the age thing was the reason at all. So why was I procrastinating about marrying this wonderful man? I do not know. Why I avoided setting a date? Maybe it was because the only marriage I ever knew, that of my parents, was not a great model and finally ended in divorce. I could have been subconsciously trying to avoid getting married because of the pain I suffered as a young girl of 16 when all of my ideas about marriage and fidelity were challenged. I'm sure those seeds of distrust planted by my father leaving us when things got tough were a major factor as well. All I know is for sure is that Robert gave me an ultimatum. Either I had to start or set a date and start planning our wedding, or he would. And ladies, yeah, you know. So out of fear that he would plan our nuptials as a backyard barbecue, I was very motivated and I got busy planning. Not surprisingly, everything did not happen according to plan, but we had a wonderful wedding anyway. There was so much love there. It was a real joy. And ironically, after all my efforts to avoid that day, once in the moment, I did not want that glorious night to end. But of course, like in most fairy tales, the time flew by. Then it was off to our honeymoon, a 7-day Mexican Riviera cruise, thanks to my wonderful mother-in-law. For those of us who have been married more than 7 years, we know that married life is very difficult. The fairy tale ending of "and they lived happily ever after" is so much easier said than done. But marriage is also very rewarding, provided that both parties are indeed selflessly working together and are committed to each other and the vows that they took before God Almighty and all their witnesses. We matrimonial veterans know that when the honeymoon is over, that is when the real work begins. I want to mention this. The word compromise is like nails on the chalkboard to me. I hate that word. It does not belong in marriage, in my opinion. The correct word I would prefer is cooperation. Compromise, it is negative off the get-go. It's like it's like neither of you get what you want, and it's supposed to be better. Yeah, whatever. So for me, it's cooperation. Just a little side note there. And in fact, I remember asking, when we were still dating, Robert would tell me how he loved me. And I asked him once if he liked me, and he would keep restating he loved me. So I finally told him, I know you love me, but if you like me as a friend, then because those feelings come and go. But if you like me, then you'll stick around until that feeling comes back. That's just how I feel. You know, because friendships, any relationship, friendships, romantic relationships, there's always like a spark, a common interest. You find that person enjoyable to be around for whatever reason. Chemistry, you know, there's that chemistry that takes place, and, you know, where people click. Some people click better than others, some don't click at all. And then that is just a fascinating mystery to me. It seems that some people are better friends than lovers, and better lovers than friends. You know, it's wonderful when you get them together. Anyway, the first year was hard for me. Even though we had been living together in fornication for nearly 2 years. So in my humble opinion, that whole shack up before you wed to see if you're compatible, no, that's a bunch of bunk. My advice for young people or anybody through hard-won experience is to wait until you're married before you live together and share a bed. Truly, I most solemnly tell you, God knows what he is talking about when he commands us not to fornicate. He made sex. He knows how well it operates, how best it operates. He made the rules. He made sex. He made the rules. Follow them. Easier said than done, I realize. But I assure you, if you follow the rules, it's so much better. So I think I will leave it here. And then the next chapter will be Third Comes Baby in the Baby Carriage. All right. I hope you enjoyed this part of my testimony and hope to see you for the next part. Love you. Bye-bye now.